Good evening and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Shop with Russ. Glad to have y'all all out there and glad to have all y'all out there over in the chat. I appreciate it. We had like 20-something people before the show started. Jeff Robinson's out there, Chris Nealand, Katie Dotson. I remember she's out there, Ken McCrory, a whole bunch of people. Actually, most of my panel's out there also, Jim Bashirs and Al's out there. Jeff Robinson, I think I just said him. But anyway, Dickinson Hoffman, he's new. I don't believe he's been out there before. So Jeff Robinson. Anyway, thank you guys for out there. Just wanted to recognize that we had a lot of guys out there in the chat already waiting for us, and I do appreciate that. Don't have really any announcements other than my good friend Javi Unsueta is doing on, he's going to start it this week, I believe, on this Thursday night, but he's going to be on Twitch TV on Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And what it's Javi Unsueta on Twitch TV, and that is Javier, all one word, Unzueta, over on Twitch. And he's going to be talking about CNC stuff, using VCarve Pro, Aspire to create projects. And also he'll be answering your questions or anything you want. So that's Thursday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Javi Unsueta over on Twitch TV. That's going to be really, very good. So I'm going to enjoy watching that. And for y'all, and I don't mention it that often, who don't know, I do Scrolling with Russ over on Twitch TV on Wednesday nights at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we do scroll saw projects and also talk about scroll saw and how to, blades, bits, you name it, we talk about it. This past week, we did a scroll saw bowl, the scallop bowl, and I just like to point out Dave Gatton found a Steve Good pattern and did one out of plywood on his own, and I saw it, and it looks really good for Dave's just beginning to start scroll sawing. So for a starter or a beginner for doing a bowl like that, it looked really doggone good. So that's awesome. The only other thing I have to mention is my sponsors, which are Devobal Technologies for web design, development, and hosting. Go to devobal.com. FastCap, innovative products for the professional woodworker. Go check out fastcap.com. Rockler, 60 years in woodworking. Create with confidence with Rockler. Bearwood Supply Company, your best choice for hard-to-find woodworking supplies. Go to bearwood.com. And the new kid on the block is Klingspor, the sanding specialist. I know I was going to mess up something. Anyway, there is actually woodworkingshop.com for Klingspor. I know I keep on saying klingspor.com, which that's their corporate site, but for the woodworking store, it's woodworkingshop.com, because they sell a lot more than just sandpaper over there on their woodworking site. They sell tools and all kinds of cool lathe stuff. You name it, they sell it. So I believe that's all I have, in case unless anybody else has anything they want to pop in there. But what we'll do is when I go down the list, then y'all introduce yourself. You can just say if you have anything you want to bring to our attention, go ahead. Only other thing I got to do is I'm addicted to making little snowmen. So here's the 3 that I've made thus far. This is the last of them that I made. These 2 are made out of poplar, and this one is made out of cedar. I think Western cedar, because it's like a brown color. My friend Steve French gave me a couple of pieces that came off of a beam at like 8x8, and so I cut a chunk out of that. It was short pieces, but it was 8x8, so I think I did four 4x4s out of it, and so I have enough to make 4 of these guys. And then if y'all have been following me over on Facebook, a good friend of mine is taking down a cedar tree. His name's Bill Dehart, and he gave me a bunch of the wood, and I'm experimenting with that, and this is what I've got. This guy's going to be like really tall. So the only thing that's kind of weird about it is because this cedar has the red in the center with the white, he kind of looks, I don't know if I'm going to like that or not, rather than being a solid color, but I'm going to try it. I'm going to see how it does. So but that's my newest project. That's what I've been playing around and working on. And for those, I think I've contacted all the prizes have come in, and I've reboxed them out and got people's names on them, and I'll be shipping them. I was going to try to get to the post office today, but I was unable, so I'll be getting those out on Monday. And a lot of y'all have already got your electronic stuff from the people for the scroll saw contest. I knew I'd forget it, but for the scroll saw contest. So a lot of y'all already got your electronic stuff, so that's good. I heard several people tell me already that they got their stuff from Bear Wood Supply, their gift certificate. So that's really good. So let's get down the list and let's introduce I'll let the panel introduce themselves, and then Michelle and Elliot, y'all will be last since y'all are going to be on as the guests. So let's start off with Chris Ahern.
Hey guys, Chris Ahern here at the Old Cranky Workshop, and known in the neighborhood as the Christmas Captain. Was out with my neighbors today putting up our yard displays. So got a video in the works. Hopefully I'll get it out before Christmas. But unlike a lot of you guys, I work 40, 50 hours a week. So sitting down and working on videos is not top of my list of things to do. But I promise something is coming. So
cool.
Back to you, Russ.
I know what you mean. Lately, I've been so busy, I ain't had a chance to get a video out. And I've got two of them that I want to get out. One of them I filmed me and my friend Bill cutting up the logs and stuff in the ride over there. And I've been trying to get that one out, and I still haven't done it. And then I'm also supposed to do the Santa reading for Matt Haas over there at Awesome Woods.
I promised him one too, and I just haven't had a chance. The 5 minutes it takes to sit down and shoot it and then email it to him. I haven't had that 5 minutes.
I know exactly what you're talking about. So, all right. And next is Donald Matthews.
I'm Donald Matthews. My YouTube channel is Donald Vlogifies Woodshop. My Instagram, Twitter, and all that's over there. My website is redneckknowhow.com, and I haven't worked 40 hours in God knows how long, and I still can't find time to do nothing.
Trust me, I'm right there with you. And just to let everybody know, Rob, we can't see you or hear. I know you're muted, but we can't see you, so I guess you're gonna have to back out and come back in. Can you hear us? Earth to Rob, you can unmute yourself and answer me.
Yeah, I can hear you. I'll just sit there and listen. No problem. If you got any questions, call me up. I don't need. You don't need to see me. I cook ribs for dinner. I'm just eating them while nobody can see it.
Oh, okay, that's cool. What kind of ribs? Baby backs?
St. Louis.
St. Louis ribs. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. For those you don't know, Rob has one heck of a workshop up in Atlanta I went to. He calls it the daycare for adults. So, and then next is Mr. Jim Bashirs.
Hi, I'm Jim Bashirs. I got a small channel called Driveway Workshop, and I'm kind of excited to talk to Elliot and Michelle here with their 3D printing stuff because I just got started in it, and thanks for having me on.
No problem. And then Mr. Al Forte.
Hey, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well tonight. I am. Thank you for having me. I can be found at Odessa Woodworking and Maker Shop on Facebook, and there's a couple of videos on YouTube, and I finally got the 30-day hobby challenge done. Hobby. Anyway, I'm sure there's other stuff out there that's taking place. We'll see you out there just for fun.
Cool. I got mine done, and I got the picture posted on November 30th. I got actually I got more than 30 cars and trucks, but I posted the 30 cars and trucks that I got done. So nana boo boo. Anyway, Paul, we're really adults around here, Michelle and Elliot. So go ahead, Paul, from Paul's Messy Workshop.
I'm Paul Corliss from Paul's Messy Workshop. You can find me on YouTube at Paul's Messy Workshop, or on Instagram at Paul's Messy Workshop, or paulsmessyworkshop.com, or you can find me here on Saturday nights. Thanks for having me, Russ.
That's a heck of a lot of messy workshops.
It is, and it's messy too.
That's great.
Just remember, I only show on the camera what I want to show.
Exactly. That's me too. Whenever I'm doing my videos, I'm making sure that I keep everything in that area that's kind of like cleaned up so you can't see the rest of it. So
That's right.
that too. Well, guys, we have Michelle and Elliot, and there's more of them, I believe, in this makerspace. So we'll talk to them about it. But they're from Making It Up. I first met them in Atlanta, the beginning of the year in April, I believe it was, when we went to the woodworking show in Atlanta. And then I've started watching them over on Twitch. They do Twitch TV also. It's called Making It Up, and they do a lot of well, they do stuff for cosplay, but I'll let them explain all of it. But here is Michelle and Elliot. I'll get it right in a second. From Making It Up. How y'all guys doing?
Good.
Good.
My name is Michelle Sleeper. I'm a sculptor and an artist. This is my shop, Overworld Designs. And we do, it's funny you say that we do cosplay, because we've been making a recent concerted effort to not just do cosplay stuff, because we do like a wide variety of different weird making type things. So clearly, if you think we're the cosplay people, we have to work harder at this.
Yeah.
Well, it's the only thing that I could think of to relate to other people, because let me tell you, you just don't see the stuff that you've gotten sitting on your table every day.
Right.
Fair enough.
And we've spent the better part of the past year really working on some very big specific projects, and that's why we want to diversify now, because there are so many other things that interest us.
Why don't you introduce yourself too?
I'm Elliot. I'm the host of Making It Up, and we do our show every Tuesday and every other Saturday on stream, and we make weird and fun stuff on stream, and we talk to people like yourselves and people who have questions and other people who are making things, and we try and just hang out and have fun on stream every week. So
yeah, we try to do new stuff, and we try to do fun, weird projects. The motto of the show is "We have no clue, and so can you."
Because we're just making it up, you know. So we, generally speaking, have no idea what we're doing. Today we streamed for about five or 6 hours, and we put up cantilevered shelves on our into the stone wall in the back of our shop. So
cool. Now, when you first started this, or who started first? Did you get involved? I mean, all right. Why did you choose this path as to? For I know you said you're an artist. That's okay, but why did you choose to do this rather than drawing or other stuff?
So my background is actually in game development, and I was in that world for many years. And eventually I got kind of burnt out on it, as most people in that industry do. And when I found myself having a lot of time and wanting to be creative, when I was younger, when I was a teenager, I made things with my hands, and I wanted to try that again. And right around this time, 3D printing really was becoming a mature technology. This is around 2011. And with a background in 3D design, it was obvious to me that this is something I should give a try. And I made a prop gun from a video game, which was the first thing that I had really made with my hands in maybe 10 years. And immediately knew, this is what I want to be doing with my life. I want to be making things. I want to be using my hands. I want to be creative in a physical way. Because I've tried, traditional art, 2D art, illustration, etc., but there's nothing that beats having a piece of sculpture that you've been working on and making it perfect and amazing and showing it off and sharing it. And as for how he got started, that is part of what I was doing, which at the time I was involved with a hackerspace here in Atlanta. And I had been there for a couple years because at the time, and still now is the case, I live in downtown Atlanta. I don't have a garage or a basement or anywhere to have my own tools in my own space. So I needed somewhere to do the sort of things I was interested in. Plus, I wanted to connect with other creative people and people who were doing different types of things. So I had been there for a few years when he and I met.
Yeah. And I showed up and I just wanted to make things. I didn't care what they were. I didn't know what they were. I'd never done cosplay. I'd never really had an interest in it. I knew what it was. It just wasn't something that interested me. But I got to make things. She was part of this public group, and they were using laser cutters and 3D printers and Bondo and fiberglass and all these interesting materials and these methods of making. And I just wanted to be a part of that so badly. And I kind of eventually glommed on and started apprenticing under her for her to teach me everything she knew. And then the next thing you know, we're here. So
yeah, it was a year ago today actually that we moved into my shop that I'm in now.
Yep.
In August of last year, I had left the makerspace that I was at. And there was a couple months period before I had my own space because I was looking for months to find like what I needed. So yeah, today is a very special day for us. Today is the first birthday of when we moved in.
Yeah, first birthday of Overworld Designs as a physical location.
Cool. Anybody on the panel got any thing they want to ask? I know Jim was dying.
Yeah.
I wanted to know how you guys met Joel Crawford, because when I first met you guys, it was in Atlanta, and we were all at Joel's shop missing digits, and I kind of thought you guys worked there.
I wish. I saw his shop, and I just walked around for such a long time, just like oohing and awing at all the great tools and everything that he has in that. Gosh, that CNC.
Great toys.
Holy cow! Yeah. 5 foot by 10 foot CNC is just incredible. And the fact that it used a program that I'd been familiar with was also really cool. No, we were inducted into that whole group by Wes. He found me on Instagram one day and said, "Hey, you should come to this Atlanta meetup thing." And I said, "Yeah, we're gonna go to that." And he invited me into this big group of people, and I got to meet everybody. And that was also kind of at the beginning of our adventure with making it up. That's made this year something really special. So,
who did you say invited you to the woodworking show?
Wes Swain, Geeksmithing.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. He's a really cool guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's how I first saw y'all. Was at the woodworking show there in Atlanta, and then I got to when I started my old Twitch thing. I'd been on Twitch for a while and was trying to scan through things. I'm not sure if I knew what I heard y'all's names or got y'all's sticker or something in Atlanta, but anyway, I stumbled across y'all's making it up over on Twitch TV. So
yeah, it's a lot of fun. Twitch is a lot of fun. The amount of interaction we can have with what we call our friends, because they really have become our friends. They come every week and we talk to them every week and we know what's going on with them. It's a great experience. I love Twitch. I don't think we'll ever stop doing it, no matter, it could never be successful, but we have so much fun doing it. I don't think we'll ever stop. So
yeah, the problem that I've had with Twitch has been that I've had numerous problems, trust me. I had problems with the video first, and I got that straightened out. I figured out the video feed rates and all that and got that done. And then the last couple of shows that I did before this last one, I had audio problems. And then Michelle and Wes and a few other people said, well, if it's the mic, then if you have another mic, try another mic and maybe that'll work. And I was like, that's a pretty doggone good idea. I don't know why I didn't think of it, and I tried a new mic, and guess what? That worked. So have y'all run into, my question is have y'all run into the problems in the beginning with Twitch? And if y'all ironed them out, how did y'all iron them out? Or have just Twitch worked from day one for y'all?
Oh God, no.
No, when we initially started streaming, so January, the first Tuesday in January is the first stream that we did. There's the year anniversary of the show. But really, we started streaming December 6th. We just didn't tell anybody because we wanted to do a couple of like rehearsals. And we wanted to do like a full dress rehearsal. We wanted to be online. We wanted to have everything set up. and we wanted to go through it a couple times and see what failed. Turns out you can't. Turns out you can't stream from a 8-year-old laptop. Turns out you can't stream over Wi-Fi in a 75,000 square foot building. What other problems did we immediately have that we had to rectify?
Literally everything. The first couple of streams just did not work at all, and it was a whole host of different problems. I have to tell you honestly, I'm not even 100% sure what all the problems were. We have, since the very beginning, had the Red Human, who is our director, who fixes all of our problems as well. I'm actually kind of clueless as to how a lot of it works, is the truth. I've been in IT for years, but I have no idea how any of this works, because she takes care of everything and does a fantastic job.
But yeah, so like, you know, so step number one, we ran a hard line from the router to my studio here where we're physically at. And that immediately solved a lot of quality issues.
Right.
And then we upgraded to a dedicated desktop computer, which is kind of not designed for streaming, but it's definitely better than the laptop we were on. One of the hopes is that the stream will become profitable enough that we can upgrade to a even more dedicated machine to handle more video inputs and to just kind of have a better quality. But with the machine that we have now, it has a handful of USB 3 inputs, so we can stream at 1080 with 1080 webcams. You don't really need USB 3 for the microphone, so the mic is running off of just a normal USB port. But we still have problems. I feel like the show is really like well tuned, but we still have issues. Today, the computer blue screened twice, and we really don't know why. We think we know why, but we don't really know. So sometimes stuff just happens, no matter how well you think you're going.
Yeah,
it's not necessarily Twitch. It can be any number of different things. It's actually kind of a very complicated process. That streaming is actually pretty complicated process for a computer. So the fact that there's problems and there's so many different things to go wrong. You've got a separate camera, you got a separate mic, you got a separate computer, you got all of these things that all have to come together. It's actually a lot to.
Trust me, I'm learning, and I'm learning quick. I was beginning to throw Twitch out the window and just say I'm not even going to try it, but I'm still hanging in there. And the last show was pretty successful. So
the interactivity that we get with the people who watch our show on Twitch, it makes any amount of annoyance that we have to go through worth it. At the end of the day, it all comes down to, like I said, hanging out with our friends once a week on the internet. It's fantastic. So, and when we see all of you there, it's a great day. So it makes it totally worth it.
All right, so, Chris, I noticed you unmuted yourself. Did you have a question?
Well, I was going to ask, what's your customer base? I mean, obviously you're not selling helmets and skulls at the local craft fair. I mean, is it people just cosplay, or is it you working for TV and Hollywood stuff? Or
the dream is always to like my pipe dream is to be, you know, like Legacy Effects or something like that, like Stan Winston Studio, you know, this like amazing place that creates these amazing stuff for film and television. I don't know if I'm going to. I'm sure you've known people who achieved their dreams and then realized it wasn't really what they wanted, and I feel like that's my relationship with that dream. Because of course I want to make stuff for Marvel, and of course I want to make stuff for Star Wars, but I know enough people that are actually doing that I don't know if I really want to be doing it.
Right.
So there's definitely cosplay is a big component to it, but Atlanta has a really thriving independent filmmaking community, which we have some pretty good connections with, and I really want to like connect more with them, because these are people that like deeply love the things that they're making and have really weird and creative and interesting ideas. we had connected with one guy who wanted to make like a low budget science fiction film and wanted us to make the model of the spaceship for him to do like old school practical special effects, the way they made the original Star Wars. And that seems really awesome. Of course I want to be involved in that sort of project. But then, you know, there's a local airsoft group that we made some armor for them. So they wanted, Jeff, do you want to go grab that really quick? And we'll show it to you really quickly. They wanted us to make airsoft like capable armor for this airsoft event that they have, which I thought was really neat. Yeah. So really at the end of the day, I will make anything that is neat that people want to pay me for.
Of course.
Maybe I should be a little more picky, but I don't know. As long as I'm doing cool stuff, I kind of don't care.
Okay, I was curious. Like I said, you're not doing woodwork that we sell at the craft fairs, so I was curious what your customer base was.
But yeah, if you want to see real quick, this is the chest piece of this armor that we made.
Cool. Yeah, I've seen the pictures of that. That's great too.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So like this is like made out of like fiberglass, and it's incredibly strong, and this will survive being shot by an airsoft gun. So doing stuff like this is just really cool.
Yeah. I could have used that when I was a kid playing war with BB guns.
Yeah,
exactly, right?
Yeah. I see all these little airsoft guns, or my grandson plays with those. What do they call them with the little I guess
Nerf guns?
Yeah, that with the sponge bullets or whatever.
Nerf.
There you go, Nerf. And I'm thinking to myself, dude, we used to shoot each other with BB guns when we played war.
There's someone bring a pellet gun.
Yeah. Yeah, and we didn't have, back when I played, we didn't have those pump BB guns. We had the single daisy. So you just cocked it, you know, and fired to one time. But still, those would sting like heck.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Sorry. Out of those models that you've got on the desk up there, did you 3D print any of those, or were they?
All of them.
Were they done?
Yeah.
So, like, say the one in the middle there, how many different pieces do you have to print to actually make that, and then glue it together and, you know?
Yeah, so all the stuff you see on the table right now was either currently 3D printed or began life as a 3D print. And what I mean by that is that armor that I showed you, we made like 10 sets of that. And you're not going to 3D print 10 of the same thing.
Yeah.
You want to make a mold, and you want to, especially if you want to be a different material, you have to go through a different process. So like this is made out of cast resin, but it started life as a 3D print, which is what this helmet currently is. Now, this helmet was printed on my Lulzbot Taz 6. The Taz 6 is a really big printer. It has a printing volume that's roughly 13 inches cubed. So we use it for when we need to make really big parts. It's a really good machine. I won't say it's my favorite, but it's a really good machine. So this thing was we actually have the faceplate is currently separate. We haven't attached that yet. But the ear sections from here out were printed as one piece, and then the like middle body was printed in two halves. Another artist in my studio, Jeff, he made this. I gave him some suggestions on how to print this maybe a little better, and he decided not to listen, and that's fine. I would have done this slightly differently. But for a very initial stage of a print that will eventually be this sort of quality, this came out really well.
Really good.
And what we'll do is there's a lot of sanding involved. But earlier someone asked what material we print in, and we print pretty exclusively in ABS. Now I know ABS is not the most popular material out there, and I understand why. But for us, it has some interesting properties. In particular, you can dissolve it in acetone, And you can basically make your own ABS cement, which we then use to paint onto the models. And that helps fill in the the printing lines, the striations that you see on 3D prints. So it helps us fill that in and go through like more sanding passes. And this will go through a couple stages where we use filler primers and we use Bondo and spot putty, body putty, until eventually we get it to an automotive quality. Like this will be just short of being wax, basically. You want it to be perfectly smooth. You want it to be perfectly detailed. Because if we want to make multiple of these, which we want to, we're going to make a silicone mold of it, a negative mold. And that's where stuff like this comes from, where it actually, Elliot will show you part of the mold for the skull.
Take everything off.
Yeah. Just
Eloy out there wants you to walk us through the abbreviated version of from start to finish of making something like that.
Yeah. So that's essentially what this is. We'll go. It'll start out like this, which is a 3D print, and we'll sand it, and we'll layer on. We'll paint on that ABS sludge. Which, so if any of you out there want to make stuff like this, where you 3D print it and then sand it, and make it look good, here's my secret. You want, should we go get the measuring jar? The ABS sludge we make is 2 parts acetone to 1 part methyl ethyl ketone, and then as much as much scrap ABS, either support material or failed prints or what have you, and let that sit for about 24 hours, and it'll turn into homemade ABS cement.
So basically, you're making Carolina moonshine.
Exactly. It smells crisp, let me tell you.
Yeah.
So you'll paint on the sludge onto your model, and you'll sand it, and you'll use Bondo and fill it and sand it, and you use spot putty and sand it, and there's a lot of sanding involved, let me tell you.
The way you're describing it does sound like it's almost an automotive finish.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's when I was in my late teens, I had dabbled in like some auto body stuff, and you'd be surprised how very, very similar this process is. So then once we have our model, our original, our master perfected, then we'll create a silicone mold, the negative for it. You want to move this real quick? You take over, Tim.
Yeah, so a mold for something like this is done in multiple parts. This is one piece of the mold, but you can see here that this is the negative of this positive. And so once we have a 3D model and it's wet sanded down to perfectly smooth, we paint on this silicone when it's liquid, and it hardens into a very rubbery texture. This outside here is the last part of the mold itself, which is called the mother, and this is used because this is flexible. Thank you. Since this is flexible, in order to have the item keep its shape, you have to put it in a mother mold that is rigid. So you pour in this case, resin, and you do what's called, in this case, you do what's called slush casting, and you move it all around to get a nice even coat. And you have to do that multiple times, and one of these pops out eventually.
Yeah. So, the way that whenever I teach classes, because I'll have a lot of classes where I'm teaching this to people, all of your work is going to go into your original, into your master. Because if I spend 100 hours on this and I make a mold, I can then make castings out of this mold, 2, 3, 4 of them a day, and like you're just making money at that point, right? Like the armors that we made. Of course, that took me weeks to finish. But once it was molded, I can crank out a completed set every 18 hours, basically. Yeah, so all of your time and energy goes into the first one, and then you can make reproductions, and that's essentially the business model.
In the 18 hours, just to point this out, the 18 hours is actually only 45 minutes worth of work. You just have to wait between each process for the chemical that you're using to cure or dry or whatever. So
I hope that answered the question.
Yeah,
When you're pouring that into the mold, do you have to use something to keep it from adhering to the mold, or just
yes, you use mold release.
Well, whenever you have your original and you're applying the silicone onto the original, you don't have to worry about that because silicone really will only stick to itself. It doesn't stick to a 3D printed part. It doesn't stick to our mother material, which is just regular fiberglass resin. But when you're doing a complex mold where you have where you're doing it in multiple sections, then yes, you'll need to, like Elliot said, apply a release agent between each side. And it can be as simple as like wax, like a paste wax. There is specialized mold releases, which are better, and you'll typically find them where you're buying this material at. So of course we use that because it's there.
I don't know. We tried, and when we were doing this one, we tried paste wax, and it was so easy to apply. It dried in such a way that when brushing on more silicone or even fiberglass, it just didn't come off. Paste wax is my favorite form of mold release when making a multi-part mold, for sure.
Yeah.
Have you paste wax? Are you talking about the
Johnson's paste wax?
Paste wax, floor wax, yeah. That stuff, I use that on my tools to protect my tools. I use that on my wooden drawers that are wood on woods for slides. I use that to wax them to make them slide. I mean, that stuff has so many. I'll dip like if I'm gonna put a screw in, I'll dip the screw in the paste wax and put it in to help the screw drive. I mean, that thing, that's like, yep, that's it.
Yep. And this stuff lasts forever, and it's $6. If you have a shop, please do yourself a favor and get some of this. You will use it.
My favorite application I found for it recently is to do weathering. So if you take a look on this painted star here, we wanted to simulate like a painted paint chips or like a bullet ricochet or something. And those little chips right there were made using paste wax. We put a little bit on with a paintbrush, and then I put on my mask where I paint the star. And then when the paint was dry, I wiped it off, and the paint and the paste wax came right off. And I think the result was really, really good.
Wow. You're going to have to let the red human come around because she keeps on sticking her hand in there.
Yeah, exactly.
Funny story, sticking her arm in the camera is exactly how she got the name Red Human. So
yeah, before somebody's got to come around. That's awesome. And what you're doing, I've watched some of the stuff on TV on like Discovery and Channel, and of the people making some of that stuff. And so I've seen what you were doing before on TV, but it's really neat to watch or know that somebody like y'all are experimenting with the same stuff. What's the name of the one on Sci-Fi where they make people up? I can't think.
Face Off.
Face Off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's really cool that y'all are doing that.
Yeah, and like and knowing the process and seeing what you see on TV, you are seeing like just the surface of what they're doing or capable of doing. Like case in point, we're 40 minutes into this, and I feel like I've not even told you 1% of what I want to tell all of you about all of this process.
Right.
When we made some molds earlier this year, and we had like a 6 or 8 hour long stream while we were doing the whole process. And like every 15 minutes, someone new would come in, and I just want to tell more people about it. It's a really cool process, and there's so many applications that you like don't realize you could use this for. Like I got a Power Wheels that I'm going to turn into a giant remote control car. And if I need to do body work for that, or if I need to make special stuff for this like remote control car, this technique would be applicable there. Or a better example, the owner of the building that we're at is bought like a 65 VW Bug and wants us to do a bunch of stuff for the interior. He wants like radio knobs and like a shifter, and wants it out of like clear or colored
Tinted.
resin. Yeah, tinted resin. And it's like, of course I can do that. That's what we do. So there's just so many different things you can do with like this technique.
It's one of those things that the possibilities are quite literally limitless. You can do any number of different things, and it's so much fun. And we all love sharing how, because people love this stuff, and it's so much fun that we want other people to do it too. So,
how many people do you? Now, this is a maker. You own the makerspace, right, Michelle?
So the building or the room that we're in is my studio.
Right.
The space that I'm at is called Mutiny Artworks. It's an artist collective. It's located here in downtown Atlanta. The building is 75,000 square foot. Wow. There's 50 or 60 other members that have studios like mine. They're different sizes, and the owner will kind of let you get away with whatever you want. If you're like, hey, I want a giant room to do something in, he'll build it. Or if you're like, hey, I need a little tiny, closet to do painting in, they'll build it for you.
Cool.
But yes, the studio we're in is mine. I will hesitate to call it a makerspace. I was involved. I have been involved with the Atlanta maker community for a number of years now, and I feel like makerspace describes a very specific public organization. And although I do have like an open door policy to most anyone who's a creative in the Atlanta area, we aren't a public. This is not a public studio.
Okay.
Yeah. Does that answer?
Yeah.
There's a question in the chat, if I may interrupt.
Yeah, absolutely.
Javi's Woodshop is asking, question for Michelle and Elliot. How large and how small are your modeling capabilities? How big or small can you go or have you made regarding model size?
In the largest single 3D model was actually this giant costume that we made for Elliot that we took to TwitchCon earlier this year. And it is a 7-foot suit of powered armor. And to give you an idea, this is the shin piece.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, we can't even get this in a frame. Like this is one piece out of 38 of how big this giant costume is.
Wow.
This is 3D printed, right?
The original for this was in fact 3D printed. This was printed also on the Taz 6, I think in 4 parts. But if you turn it around, yet again, this is a fiberglass piece because the original 3D print was molded and we needed a lightweight copy of it. Because I mean,
this weighs 3 pounds or
yeah,
less.
like you can see me holding this on my little finger.
Oh, wow.
This fiberglass piece weighs almost nothing.
Yeah, it gives you the impression, as big as it is, that it weighs 30 or 40 pounds.
Oh, yeah, and when you're in this costume, like you can sell the way your body moves, you can sell the illusion of weight and power, and it looks so good when you're in it.
Now,
It's
Elliot,
imposing. It's physically imposing for other people in the room.
you wrote that, right, Elliot?
But as far as like the smallest thing we've made, another artist in our group, Travers, he just recently got a Form 2, which is an SLA resin printer, which is kind of the other direction as the Taz. The Taz will print really large things. The Form 2 will print them really small, but it's almost an order of magnitude higher detail. We'll try and bring this up to the camera. This is a little 3D printed, it's called a Roctopus. And you can, and the model for this is incredibly detailed, but you can see like the individual fingers in its little, like, its little gesture, right?
Yeah.
So the Form 2 will print highly detailed, but it's a very small printer. So with the addition of that into the mix, we can kind of go either direction with really large or really itty bitty.
So with that costume, did you have to learn how to walk on stilts?
Yeah. We custom built our own stilts. They're made out of square steel tubing. They pivot, and so they were modeled basically after drywall stilts. And the reason for that is because of how they pivot, there's actually very, very, very little learning curve in learning to walk in them. It's really easy because it feels natural because they move the way your foot and your leg do. We had a friend help us with the design of them, and then we welded them together and put everything together, and they work great. They are 10.5 inches, 12 inches, something like that.
Yeah. We looked into existing stilt designs, and all of them were actually too tall.
Yeah.
We needed to be higher off the ground, but not like extravagantly higher. So we had to make them. And that was actually my first experience machining. I spent about 8 hours in front of a Bridgeport doing the same 3 operations on about 20 different pieces of steel.
I feel like that's a good cross-section of what machining actually is.
Yeah.
They got a question over here. Do you have any way to recycle your filament? Yeah.
So the short answer is yes, and the long answer is no. It's not really worth it. There's a machine called a Filastruder, which will allow you to make your own 3D printing filament. And if you buy or make a mechanism to shred old prints, then in theory you could make your own mulch and have that be fed into the Filastruder to produce new filament. But this has a couple of problems. Number one, the plastic can only be melted and stretched and reformed a couple of times before it's really not that good at doing that anymore chemically. Number two, you introduce a lot of impurities to it. Dust and oils on your fingers and oils from your shredder and everything. So you get really low quality filament out of it. Number three, you really, and this is kind of part of those previous two, you really want to use at least 50% virgin filament, which you can buy ABS pellets. That is exactly what this is for. And they're not radically expensive, and that's what the Filastruder actually wants you to be using. But it's not like you're going to bring your filament cost to zero. And then ultimately, at the end, what you have is filament that is low quality, that has impurities in it, and because the Filastruder can't vacuum degas the molten plastic, it has air bubbles in it as well. So in theory, yes, you can make your own filament. In practice, filament's not that expensive and is, in my opinion, not worth the headache to try and get this machine to be perfect.
I think that last part is probably the most important. Filament's $20 a spool, and a spool will get you a very long way. It's an interesting idea, but in practice, it doesn't necessarily make that much sense.
Right.
Just curious, if you had a spool, how many spools would it take to make that skull? If you were to 3D print it, if you had a big enough printer to do it, which I guess you do, don't you?
Yeah. So this skull was also printed on the TAS 6. Mm-hmm. A lot of the big costume that we were talking about earlier, that was printed on all of the different machines that I have, but the skull in particular was only printed on the TAS. I actually did an article for tested.com on the TAS 6, and that's what I was using as part of the process was, hey, I made this giant thing on it because the TAS 6 is giant, let's make something big. And if I remember correctly, the skull actually has horns as well. The finished one isn't here, but you guys saw it 2 weeks ago when we were at Wes's. So the skull itself was 7 pieces, 7 large prints. And if I remember correctly, that was basically 3/4 of a spool per piece. And it was something like 5 spools total.
Because you can't it's also kind of difficult. It's not impossible, and it's much more doable than recycling your filament. But it's kind of difficult to fuse them together. So when you use 3/4 of a spool of filament, you set that aside for the next time you have a print that's small enough to take up that amount of filament.
Yeah, if you have one print, and it says, hey, I need 20% of a spool, but you only have a spool with 15%, even though 15% of a spool is a lot of material, you can't use it for this, so you need to use a fresh one. And that's what I ran into on this and other really large pieces.
It's exactly like wood scraps.
Well, I was going to say, basically what you're describing is the fact that you actually have to kind of model your size of your model per how much the spool will do, correct?
Yeah, and my one thing I want us to build here in the shop before too long is what he was saying is a crimp that basically will take 2 spools of filament at the ends and fuse them, so that if I have 10% left, instead of waiting for a project that needs that much or less, I can just stick it onto the front end of a fresh spool and never really have to worry about keeping tons of scraps around.
Yeah.
Okay. I was going to ask, there had to be some way. Is it a crimp, or does it actually melt or fuse the 2 pieces back together? Or
it melts and fuses them together.
Right.
A crimp is an easy way to put it. And in fact, it would work a lot like a crimp. But at the end of the day, what it's actually doing is it's melting 2 pieces of filament together so that they are one.
Right. Okay.
Have you guys ever worked with different types of filaments? I know they've got wood impregnated filament, and then you've got stuff with carbon fiber in it and actual metal.
Yeah. Most of the filaments that are like the metal impregnated filaments and the wood impregnated filaments, I've used both of those before, and a couple of other different kinds. Those are mostly PLA that they add things into. We don't use much PLA because we have kind of a very specific use case for what we use our 3D printers for, and PLA is not ideal for us for that use. There's other filaments that are more flexible. We have projects coming up in the future, probably in the next year, where we will have the opportunity to use some of those and experiment with some of those. But we haven't done a lot of that. The carbon fiber ones, a lot of the carbon fiber filaments, you really want a dedicated printer to those. They will chew through the nozzles and the hot ends of the 3D printer very, very quickly. And then there are the ones, there's actually, I think, to my knowledge, there's only really one consumer level that does continuous carbon fiber prints, and it actually runs a carbon fiber through the entire thing. That is an extremely expensive machine, both to buy and to upkeep and buy filament for.
I've used a number of different filament types, and Elliot's right on kind of all those points. Carbon fiber is really abrasive on your nozzle, but other filaments, you may not realize it, also are.
Yeah.
Anything that has kind of a gimmick to it, or really what I mean by that is has an additive to it, is gonna wear out the life of your nozzle. Glow in the dark filament, metal filament, stuff like that. You need to expect that you'll need to replace the nozzle on your hot end eventually, and that will be greatly expedited by materials like that. But the metal infused PLAs, yeah, you can buff them up like they're metal because they are metal. And I've seen in person like a copper 3D printed filament part, and it looked beautiful. And because it's still copper, you can sand away the print lines. And if you buff it with like steel wool, you would never be able to guess it wasn't actually metal until you held it in your hand.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Amazing. I saw where people were making shoes out of it and liners for your gym shoes and stuff. They have that really spongy stuff out now, so that
that's TPE.
TPU. Yeah, there's a brand name called Ninjaflex, which is really popular, and I have used that to help make a prosthetic for a woman who was missing a limb, and it was used as the springing mechanism to open the hand back up. But there are different types of the materials, is like I said to Elliot, as TPUs, and they're different hardnesses and different properties to them that give them different flexibilities. And there's anything you can imagine to use for that type of material is a possibility. You just have to figure out how to manufacture it. With a lot of the flexible filaments, you may be able to print them with most printers. The problem there is actually the method of extrusion. And you may need a dedicated, not the hot end, the part that gets hot and melts it, but the cold end, the extruder part that pushes it down. You can imagine there's obviously a problem where you have to push something that's flexible, and you may run into problems with that, right?
Yeah, there's one that kind of pull the filament into the hot end, and other ones that kind of push it into the hot end. And for flexible filaments, you definitely need to push it into the hot end. Basically, the truth is, for a lot of the people who print in 3D in flexible filaments, you want kind of a whole dedicated hot end where you can take that part out, put in a new one. The TAS is phenomenal for that. Everything else, it's kind of a big pain in the butt. So,
do you guys modify your printers much when you get them in? I know, there's a lot of like fan shroud modifications or stuff like my CR10. There's a lot of stuff to stiffen it up so it doesn't move back and forth and that kind of thing. Do you really do a lot of that, or do you bring them?
I don't know.
I'll bring it.
Well, no, just like back up. You can see if you guys take a look at the table behind us, we are currently building 2 3D printers.
Wow.
These are actually built from scraps of other machines that we had. This is like the bare basic core frame of a 3D printer. Yeah, I love modifying these things, and the concept of the RepRap project of an open source machine that everything you need to make and build and use is phenomenal to me. I love everything about that. And the machines that we have in my shop are mostly these like very basic bare bones RepRap machines. I about a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago at this point, I bought a kit from Folger Tech for $270, and you get a box of parts and a set of instructions that is kind of questionable. And
sounds like a CNC.
I'm sorry, say it again.
Sorry, sounds like a CNC I built.
Exactly, yeah. But here's the thing. I recommend this to people anytime they want to ask me what printer to get, and here's why. When you build your own machine from a box of parts and a set of instructions that is kind of not that great, when your machine eventually has a problem, which it will, no 3D printer is without some sort of maintenance or repair, you will understand how the machine works.
Yes.
And you won't need to send it off to customer support, or you won't need to deal with looking on online forums, or in the case of Elliot, you won't have a $600 paperweight sitting in your house.
Yeah. And my first 3D printer was a Da Vinci. I don't suggest that brand for multiple reasons. And it's not just because it died. The brand itself, I'm gonna turn this.
Yeah.
The brand itself is not the best. Anyways, but yeah, the board fried on it, and if I get a new board, it's locked down in such a way that it becomes really basically unusable to me anymore. So yeah, now I have a big, very large, heavy paperweight. So,
but as far as like individual specific upgrades, the ones that we're building now, I have some upgrades in mind that I wanted to do to my existing machines. So I want to build these ones with these upgrades in mind before I convert my existing machines to them. Elliot discovered his love of lead screws. So we're converting everything from the Z-axis from threaded rod to lead screws. And I'm just making some like different tweaks to the components of it. And again, like that's why I love these open source RepRap machines, because I can either know what each of the parts do, or I can very easily find out what they are.
We got a question. Jeff Robinson wants to know, what is the lowest durometer scale filament that you have used?
Diameter?
Durometer.
Durometer, yeah.
Durometer, yeah.
The hardness, basically. Yeah, I mean, I have I use Ninjaflex, or I was involved with that prosthetic, the one, the flexible finger one, and that might be it. As far as the softest that I used was Ninjaflex. MakeShaper sent me some samples of a lot of their TPUs, and unfortunately, I just have not had an opportunity to play with them. But they have some really soft ones as well. So unfortunately, I don't have a ton of experience with super soft filaments to depart on you. I'm sorry.
Next question is Matt Haas from Awesome Fun Things wants to know how lucrative is the model making, cosplay, props, 3D printing, modeling business?
First off, hello, Matt.
Yes.
Thank you for the video early. We really like watching that.
Yeah.
As far as your question, each of those different things you suggested have very wildly differing lucrative businesses or models to them. Making 3D models, in my opinion, is incredibly lucrative because anyone who 3D prints, if they don't know how to make their own model, they need someone to make it for them. And even though I have a background in 3D design and I know what I'm doing, I'm especially the past 2 years, I've not had time to make my own 3D models. So I'll collaborate with 3D artists or straight up commission models to get made. So if someone like me is paying to get models, there's a business there. And if you know how to do it, you totally need to market yourself. And there's kind of two halves to that. One, the prop replica, cosplay, prop modeling, but then like CAD, 3D sort of things. Like the laser cutter I'm building, I had to take a crash course in Fusion 360 to modify this laser cutter 3D CAD design that I had. And had that not be something I'm like deeply interested in doing anyway, I totally would have looked for someone to do it for me. So 3D modeling, highly lucrative. The prop replica business itself, it kind of depends on where you go. It kind of depends on what you're making. There are definitely like stuff that are evergreen. Star Wars fans will always want Star Wars stuff. Batman fans always want Batman stuff. But there are people that are operating in those spheres that are very well established, very well respected artists, and are making very good things. And if there's a guy that makes a Batman cowl and everyone knows him by name, and you try to get into that market, you're not going to do well. So a lot of people will go for like new things. And at that point, it's like chasing down any market. Is the thing that I'm dedicating my time in the thing that's going to be hot? I personally don't think there's any money in 3D printing itself. Anyone who thinks they can buy a 3D printer and start making money on it doesn't know much about that. There's a website called 3dhubs.com, which is basically eBay for 3D printing time. So say, for example, you own a 3D printer and you want to make money printing stuff, you can list on 3D Hubs to make things at your minutely rate or hourly rate. But as you can imagine, that was immediately a race to the bottom. And so now there's just not a lot of money there.
Unless you have a fleet and you can operate at that level. And by a fleet, I mean 20 to 50 3D printers, and you can offer them up all the time. And at that point, that's a business model. That is a business that you're getting into. It's not one person 3D printing. So,
all right, Tommy G wants to know how many hours did it take to print the skull?
I think the printing time is something like 120 hours. The face was one piece, and this was about 30. The backs were 25, 28. And then the horns were about 20 each, I think.
No, it was, yeah, no, I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, the great thing is I say this insane number. Oh, it took 100 hours to print. Well, while it was printing, we were working on other stuff.
Yeah.
So 3D printers are great because they'll work while you work, and it's like having another person in the shop.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's kind of like a CNC.
Exactly.
I set my CNC to do a job, but I go and do other things, like I'll do some scroll saw stuff or whatever around the shop. So,
what do you guys?
Yeah.
What do you guys use for your slicer program? Do you use Cura?
We use Cura in a program called Replica. 123D Design is also an option. We don't use paid programs for multiple reasons. The biggest one is our whole goal is to make sure that everything we do is as accessible to people as possible. We want to teach people so that they go out and do it and learn how much fun this stuff is. So if we use expensive paid programs and we suggest those to people, that becomes a barrier to entry that we kind of try and avoid. And Replica and Cura are both
free and open source.
Is Replica open source?
Yeah.
Okay.
What Elliot's referring to is Simplify 3D.
Yeah.
It's a very well-known, and from everything I've heard, a very good program. I have never used it, and the only thing I have ever heard that people really want to use it for is it is very good at making supports. And I have a hard time justifying spending $120 for supports when I'll just have to do a little bit more cleanup.
Yeah, we do so much post-processing with all of our 3D prints anyways that, like, it doesn't, there's no reason to do that. So.
Dickinson Hoffman says, Elliot and Michelle really know their stuff. It's a great show. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dickinson Hoffman. But he also says, Elliot and Michelle, do you like using Arduino boards for your 3D printer?
Yeah, all of the printers that we have are running on your average run-of-the-mill ramps shield, which for those of you who don't know, there's one sitting over on the shelf. Oh, right there.
Just the box.
The brain, the controller on this is an Arduino Mega, which is just an Arduino that has a lot of input ports, and then a ramps shield on top of it, which is effectively a CNC shield that goes on top of it. And it gives you connections for all of your steppers, for your hot end, for everything. And for the machine that we're building, this is the ramps shield itself. And I bought this complete kit that Elliot has. This whole thing was, I think, $40.
Wow.
Yeah, so which is pretty cheap. Now that includes like a little LCD screen for you to control it, the Arduino itself, and the ramp shield and everything you need. I have used a Rambo, which is basically a dedicated Arduino and ramps board, and they're really good. They have a lot of great features to them. They are pretty expensive, and
the red human reminds me of the lady on The Price is Right holding those things up.
I'm sorry, say that again, please. I'm sorry.
I said the red human reminds me of the lady on The Price is Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Vanna Red.
Is that Vanna?
Vanna.
Yeah, Vanna
Anyways,
White.
Yeah.
Only
Sorry,
she's
go
Vanna
ahead.
Red because she's the red human.
Hey, we turn just a little bit, please.
Right.
Jeff Robinson wants to know, what software are you using to do your 3D printing?
Now, so he asked, what are we using to do the 3D printing, which is Cura? What I am guessing you asked is, what are we doing to do our 3D modeling? And that kind of depends what we're making. If you want to do organic, like living sort of shapes, you want to do something that's a digital sculpting program. Something like ZBrush, which is ZBrush and Sculptress are the ones I recommend. Sculptress is basically a free version. And you can think of these programs as having a piece of clay on your computer, and the tools that you use are exactly like if you're doing it by hand. And you can add clay to it and take some away, and it's literally sculpting on your computer screen. But if you're doing something like the armor, where it's a very rigid and regular shape, then something that's more suited for that is better. Something like that was made in Fusion 360. Something like Rhino, which is another 3D modeling program that is more for solid body stuff. That's what that's really good for. But again, we like to use and recommend free available stuff. So I recommend Blender. It has kind of a steep learning curve, but it's free. It's open source, I think, and it has a huge community behind it, and you can do really powerful stuff with it. So as often as I can, I use Blender because I want to show people that you don't need to buy, yet again, you don't need to buy expensive software to get good results.
Fusion is also free, but it is not open source.
Yes.
So
Blender's
an important distinction.
Blender's what I use to edit my videos, and I've done some 3D modeling for my intro on. I didn't know to cross over into 3D printing.
Oh yeah. I mean, Blender natively has an STL export feature, so you can make your 3D model and then export it to a model to a file format your 3D printer can accept.
Cool. I might have to save up and get me a 3D printer.
I mean,
Right.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead and finish what you were saying.
I said a kit like this that you can get for really cheap. I really have to recommend it. I'm not going to say it's the easiest thing to put together, especially if you've never done it. But there's a great community out there. You can connect with us, and I would be happy to help you through or with any questions you might have. But you really can't beat the price of something like this. This kit was $280, and then I recommend about $100 in upgrades to it to make it a lot easier to use. Features like auto bed leveling, and just some quality of life upgrades to it. So yeah, if you're curious about getting into it, get a kit. You will get experience with the machine, and they're not that expensive.
Okay, everybody wants the red human to come around and they want to hear and tell us what her real name is.
Indeed.
The red human is shaking her head.
No,
do you not want me to tell them?
She is the red human because she does not like to be on camera. So
if you want to meet the red human, you'll have to come to an event where we are there face to face. She is always there with us.
Can you at least tell us what her first name is?
Her name is Becca. And that is Becca with a K.
Okay.
Hello, Becca.
K-A-H.
Hi, Becca. I mean, I literally have several people out here wanting to.
Yeah, I see that.
That's awesome.
If
I had my head.
Yeah. So the red human persona, and actually Matt mentioned this in his video earlier. This started from really kind of what you guys are seeing, where she will reach to give us stuff across the camera. She's a filmmaker, and so she wants to be behind the camera and doing that sort of thing, and that's how she's gotten involved in our show. And one day we were streaming. This is very early on, and she reached across, and someone was in our chat, and in really broken English, they typed into our chat. They were like, "Who is Red Human?" Because she was wearing a red hoodie, so this red arm reached into view. And it sort of took off from there. We had a fan has drawn fan art of the red human, and we like that so much that we made a physical costume off of their fan art, and it's really kind of blown up. And in our little following, if you watch our Twitch channel, she's always there. People know her by that. We've integrated some of that art into the show itself. So it's really the comedy of this character who is our director, who is someone physically in the room, kind of goes to show how amazing the Twitch platform is, because you connect with these people who are total strangers and they live all over the world. We have more fans in Europe than I ever would have imagined in my life. But they're there every time we stream, and we genuinely feel close to these people. So it's really cool.
I've got people from Australia, New Zealand, France, Spain, Portugal, several countries that watch my channel and this show. They actually can't watch it live because of the time difference. So what they do is watch it the following day. So usually when I have like a giveaway, I don't close it down until like Sunday midnights to give them a chance to wake up the next day and watch it to be able to participate in the giveaway. I forgot what I was going to say now. Crap. That's what you get. That's what you get when you get old. You forget what you're going to say. But anyway, I was going to say that. I know what it was. Do y'all don't happen to have the monitor, the computer monitor thing with y'all, do you?
Unfortunately, that is after going to the event at Wes's house, it got to my house and it has not made it back to the shop because of the reorganization. We didn't want to bring more stuff that we would have to move around to the shop. So
okay, Michelle, when we do this again next time, don't invite Elliot, or if you do, make sure he brings everything up.
If you take a look on our social media, we have a handful of photos and videos of it. So for those of you who haven't seen it, the fan art that we drew that this was drawn from was she's like a robot wearing a red hoodie with a old CRT monitor for a head, right? And she has this like smiley face on it, and it's adorable and hilarious. So we acquired an old CRT monitor and gutted it. So we just wanted the shell of it. We wanted it empty and hollow, which was easy enough to do. And the hard part was we created an LED matrix screen that we hook up to an Arduino and can put images on it. Now, the screen's not that big. It's only 19 pixels wide by 15 pixels tall. But that's enough to do like really emotive smiley face type pictures on it.
And text.
And we can put text on it as well, which has some really fun opportunities. Like when we were at TwitchCon, we have it scroll TwitchCon.
And when we were at Wes's, we had it scroll Geeksmithing.
Yeah. But yeah, it's this really simple thing. We used the NeoPixel LED strips and just created the LED matrix for it, and then put it in, sandwiched it between two pieces of acrylic and hot glued it in so it's not going to move or anything. And the whole thing runs off of an Arduino, and it's powered by 4 cell phone backup battery things. And yeah, it's super lightweight. The monitor itself was like black and silver, but we wanted that like beige, that yellowish brown that they just don't make anymore. And one of the other artists here at the collective we're at, he's a painter, and he was like, I can mix up that color for you. So he painted it the perfect color of like beige.
Yeah.
It was perfect. Yeah. So
if people want to see it in action, I know that Matt Haas over at Awesome Fun Things just did a video of y'all being over at Wes's, all of y'all at Wes's, as a matter of fact, and he's got in the video that the red human wearing that in the video. So if y'all want to check that out, go over to Matt Haas's Awesome Fun Things and watch the video. It was pretty cool. I watched it today.
Yeah, you will. You'll definitely see that again in the future. If there's another Atlanta woodworking show, we'll be there with it, or any other maker events. There's a couple events next year that I don't want to publicly commit ourselves to, but we will be at, and we will have it there. So
Yeah,
you know the one I'm talking about.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. And it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So.
All right. I just wanted to point out that we had somebody join us a little bit late, but he's here. His name is Mr. Steve Carmichael. How you doing, Steve?
I'm good. How are y'all? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I'm in Lawrenceville. So hi, Elliot, Michelle. We're practically neighbors.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you ever want to come hang out on our stream sometime, let's connect.
Or just come to the shop.
If you just want to hang out in the shop and get weird with it. We love connecting with like other Atlanta creators and makers. So let's chat after the show.
The Folger Tech. I've got a Prusa i3 that I mess around with.
Yeah, the Prusas are.
I was going to ask you.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. How do you go about painting your projects? Because that's usually my perfect opportunity to screw something up is when I go to paint it. But do you find that certain materials that you make your final object out of, certain paints and chemicals and brush or spray paint or a mix of things?
Most of the stuff that we do, we start with primer. Just basic primer, and the biggest reason to do that is primer usually will attach to almost anything, and then once it does, you can use most paints on top of it. These were all painted in primer, then painted in spray paint green, and all the weathering, the dirt, the muck that you see, that was painted on with just acrylic paints that you buy at any craft store or art supply store. This guy actually, though, is a little bit different of a case. To really accentuate the live edges in here and the everything going on, this was airbrushed. So, which is an art all in and of itself. That is something that'll take a lot of practice to master.
I don't think you were here when we said before, but I don't know what your cleanup process is, but once you've printed your part, and if you're wanting to make it look not 3D printed, obviously you're going to sand it. But doing a couple passes of this like heavy filler primer, I really recommend. And I buy this at your local Home Depot, Lowe's, whatever.
Don't say that word.
Yeah, and this just helps fill in the like print lines that you can then sand or sand away to give you a smooth finish.
Yeah, you can find that at Walmart also. Actually, Walmart's cheaper.
Yeah. Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, you can find them at Walmart sometimes. You can find them at Michael's. There's a lot of places you can find the basic filler primers. If you follow some of the other people who work with 3D prints a lot, they will suggest other filler primers that they prefer, that they have to order online or find at a specialty store that are better for one reason or another. One of the advantages of some of them is that they have a bigger particle size when they come out of the spray paint, so they fill up bigger holes, so you have to do less sanding. I personally think you're kind of splitting hairs at that point, but it is, because it's work no matter what you do. So
So you're actually looking for basically a thicker primer rather than a thinner primer.
Yeah, this is double fill.
Yeah.
Well, this is.
The reason I say that is because I was going to ask you about the lacquer automotive primer in the can, but that is a real thin primer made for like fine finishes. So that I guess that wouldn't work as good.
Exactly. When you're at the stage where you're done refining and you're ready to paint, obviously you want to use a primer like that. And all of our parts, we will eventually put that sort of primer on, because some stuff like this is wet sanded and you want like a glossy finish, and you need a high quality primer if you're going to be doing that. So yeah, automotive primers are really not the best, because as you said, they're very thin and they leave a very thin coat to them. Whereas this filler primer is very heavy and very thick, and you'll want to do it in like light passes. And as you're doing it to a 3D print, you'll see the print lines kind of disappear. And then as you sand it back down, you can imagine, if you imagine the print lines in a 3D print turned over, it's like a mountain and a valley. And the filler primer is filling in the valleys so that when you sand down the mountains, everything is flat and smooth. And this really helps with that.
I get some of those lines sometimes if you are not careful and do the stepping just right on the CNC. You get those lines in the CNC.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the exact same thing too. Well, it's the exact opposite thing technically, but
but I get where you're going with that. I don't see any more questions out there. Anybody got any more questions?
Yeah, Russ, Dave Gatton had a, hi there, Pops, had a question a while back ago. I said, Michelle, are you excited that Atlanta is becoming the Hollywood of the South? And do you look for that to boost your business?
I'm excited for what that might mean exactly. Now I want to preface this by saying I'm no expert. So the things that I've heard could be completely wrong. What I have heard from people who are local artists and involved in filmmaking is that a lot of these studios, rather than hire locally, are importing their people from Hollywood and LA and California. And so local people aren't really getting a lot of these jobs. And I get that because my extremely limited experience in that sphere is that if you make a connection with a producer and you make a thing and he likes it and he likes you, he's going to come to you every time. And so if you make these people happy, they'll keep coming to you. The flip side to that is TV and movies, TV I've heard is worse, where they're like, hey, we want a skull like this. Can you make this in 4 days? And if you say no, there's no way I can do that, they'll find someone who will say yes, even if they can produce a lower quality part, and they'll never come back to you. So I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah.
Of course, I would love to be involved in that community and that industry, and of course, I dream of working on a Marvel movie. But if that means that I have to make a suit of Iron Man armor in 10 days and kill myself and 5 people to do it, is that really worth it?
At a quality that we don't find is acceptable for us. We really kind of pride ourselves on the fact that we do really high quality work here, and the idea of having to do lesser quality work so we can get it done faster or cheaper is not appealing.
Which kind of goes back to the question Matt had earlier about profitability and the market you look for. Fans who are interested in replicas of things from movies tend to want higher quality and understand that high quality comes with a higher time to it. And there are very often, if you do a lot of research on a specific prop or thing from a movie you like, you'll find that in a lot of cases, fans who have made replicas and reproductions will do so at a higher detail than the originals in the movie, which is insane to think about, but it happens.
So you really don't see a lot of local shops doing like one-off pieces for movies when they come in, or a TV show?
I think in the last couple of years that has started to be the case. Hollywood has really been doing more TV than movies, but movies as well, for several years in Atlanta now. And this all stems back to something the former governor did maybe 8-10 years ago, introducing these tax incentives. And so all of these entertainment companies moved here, and it takes time for all of these things to coalesce and develop. So I think that recently it's changed, and recently it's been better that local Atlanta artists have been involved more in this, in that industry. But for many years it was, oh, if you want to make something for this movie, even if you live in Atlanta, they're bringing in people from California, which is a shame. And if it really is turning around, then I'm excited for that. And to answer your question, I'm excited at the possibility of being involved in that industry and making something that me and all of my friends and people like you will go to a movie and see on screen. Oh, hey, that's that thing that I made. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, I've gotten used to when people ask me to make something for them, they'll ask me a time period. I'll always add a week to whatever I tell them, just to make sure I got plenty of time and I don't have to rush myself. So if I know I can make it in 3 days, I'll tell them, oh, it'll take me about 10 days and I'll have it ready. Because that's another thing that I figured out. If you have it ready earlier and tell them, oh, well, it didn't take quite as long, they're always a lot happier. But if you're late, oh, they're aggravated.
Very much.
It's that old saying, overpromise, underdeliver.
Yep.
Wait, reverse that.
Yeah. That's underpromise, overdeliver.
Yeah.
That sounds like what Scotty on the Enterprise used to do to Captain Kirk all the time.
Yeah.
Captain, I can't do that. It take 2 hours.
Yep.
But I'll do it in one.
Well, I don't see any more questions. If y'all, anybody on the panel got any more questions before we close out?
Oh, tons, but I'll ask them on their Twitch stream or something.
Yeah, I
am so excited about having this 3D printer. I just have a ball with it, and you know, I'll add some stuff that I made. It's so much fun to mess with it. So
I haven't seen any more questions.
Our next stream will be Tuesday. Feel free to drop in. We'll love to chat about it. I don't know exactly what we'll be working on, but we try to do different stuff every week, and we love talking about the 3D printers and talking, and especially connecting with people who are into it as well. It's so cool.
Well, I'm not into it yet, but you made me sign up for Twitch.
Good.
Awesome. Yeah.
Sorry, Russ, you didn't do it, but they did.
I'll deal with you later.
I know somebody else is getting switches in his stocking.
Yeah. lumps of coal.
Got plenty of coal. We're good.
Or probably plenty of tea bags.
Cole's not here, by the way.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't see any. Katie Dotson said, great show, and I really enjoyed the guest. Yes. When I've seen them on Twitch and everything, and I had wanted to get with them on a one-to-one basis to invite them on the show. And then the other night when Matt was over at West Swans and had Michelle was there and was there, it was a perfect opportunity to talk to her about it. So I'm very grateful and glad that y'all accepted the invitation we're on tonight. Great show.
Yeah, very much.
Yeah. Thank you for having us. When we were at Wes's and I was sitting down with Matt, I mentioned something about 3D printing, and like immediately I saw in chat a ton of questions come up. I was like, okay, we should talk about this like separately later.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, how many people do you have that come in and help you or work in your studio, Michelle?
So the people that are members of my studio, there are 4 of us. There's myself, there's Elliot, there's Jeff, who I've known for about 1.5 years now. And then there's Travers, who is more of a traditional sculptor, and we connected about 6 months ago. Then we have the Red Human, who is she's here for our stream. She comes in whenever we're streaming and is involved in that. But as far as the number of people we have coming in to help us, I invite all of my friends here all the time, and if you come into our stream, my hope is that you'll see new faces all the time.
Yeah.
Either people that we have worked with in the past, or people that are interested in learning something and they've come in and I want to teach them, or we'll have a group where it's like, okay, we're working on this big project. Let's break it down into small parts and everyone works on things. I mean, she's not even on stream, but we have another person in the shop right now. So yeah, I love that there's this like rotating cast of people that are in here constantly. But as far as the shop itself, and there's 4 of us, and then for making it up, there's the 5th one, the Red Human.
Cool.
Nice.
Here in a couple of years, when I save up the money for my 3D printer, I have to come talk to you.
Sure, definitely, please do.
All right, guys. Well, I appreciate everybody being over in the chat. We have had a lot of people out there. Katie Dotson's still out there. Dave Gatton joined us. Dave Gatton said, Twitch is the future, YouTube not so much. I agree. If YouTube don't cut out some of the bull crap that they've been doing, they're gonna regret real quick some of the stuff. I mean, it's getting so ridiculous now about you can produce a video and it's not suitable for their advertisers or whatever. Everybody's getting flagged on that nonsense right now. So,
and they're blaming it on their new algorithm. And if you ask them to do a human review, it'll help them make the algorithm get better. But by the time you post it and they get it all, that first 24 hours of views that you get is gone.
Yes. And that's the most important. You get your most views the first 24 hours, and they're denying you of those views. I mean, come on. It really is not going to affect us because we're not making millions of dollars off of it like some people are. But I understand what you're saying. There are some people that are living from week to week, and actually that money does help support their shops and stuff.
That $13 is a couple of packs of cigarettes for me.
Yeah, exactly. But we've got Ryan Ballard has been out there in the chat. Tommy G, Tommy G Woodshop has been out there. Dickinson Hoffman. I'm going through to try to see who all's been out there. Brenda G Design. She finally joined us. She was late. Bad Brenda. Those are some of the people that I've seen out there. I don't see Matt Haas joined us. Javier joined us finally. He's out there at the Santa's something.
Hey Russ, this is for Dickinson out in the audience.
Yes.
So he'll know what we're laughing about.
Hold it back up again. I wasn't locked on you. Oh, Aquanet. They still sell that.
This is what I use to glue my prints down to the printer while it's printing them out.
I was going to say, but they still sell that stuff?
Yeah, you have to go to a dollar store to get it, but yeah, they still sell it.
Family Dollar.
I'm not joking. That's a really popular method to help get your prints stick to different surfaces. I have a different personal method, but we won't go into that right now.
That stuff is basically lacquer.
Well, it works great.
Stuff takes me back to when I was a kid.
Oh yeah, my mom used to use it. And you talking about if a person that uses that stuff wears a black shirt, you can see flakes everywhere all over because that stuff's flaking off their hair.
And Hobby took a little exception. Sorry, Donald. He said, joined you finally. I've been here the whole show, and he has. Anyway.
Yeah, Javi, I'm glad to hear that you're going to be on Twitch, and Elliot and I will definitely have to pop in there occasionally and check you out.
Yeah. Joined finally. I wasn't talking about Hobby just joined finally. I was talking about Brenda G's Woodshop.
Oh, I thought you said and Hobby joined finally.
I said the Hobby's out there, but I was talking about Brenda G. She was about 3/4 of the way through the show. She popped in and said, "Hey, I'm sorry, I'm late."
But you confused Hobby with a woman.
Yeah.
Hobby,
Ryan Ballard's been out there. Just going back through just real quick to see who all's been out there that I try to mention some of the people that's over there in the chat. Because let me tell you, they're just as important out there in the chat as the people here on the panel and the guests. So I appreciate y'all out there watching and asking all the questions that y'all always do week to week. I appreciate you very much. So, well, thank you all. Thank you. We're going to wind down there. Chris, thank you, Donald. Rob hasn't said a whole lot. I don't even know if he's still there or not. Jim Bashirs, Al Forte, Paul from Paul's Messy Woodshop, and Steve Carmichael from. Steve, you want to just tell people real quick where we can find you?
Sure. My website is thecarmichaelworkshop.com. And find my YouTube channel and Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff.
Yep, the Carmichael's Woodshop.
I live about 7 houses down from Rob, so I'm gonna have to walk over to his shop and wake him up. It looks like.
Yeah, go over there, shake him and say, "Hey, Rob, the show's over. You can close your computer."
We have to use the camera.
I've got a question for Steve before we go.
You know, if there's so many of us makers here in Atlanta, we should try and organize like an Atlanta makers meetup sometime, kind of like what we did at Wes. You know, at Wes's place. You know, let's get together and have a good weekend together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, if y'all do that and plan it in the future far enough, I'll come up. It's only like about a 6-hour drive for me, 6 to 8 hour drive. I'll come up.
Yeah.
Well, Russ, you need a place to stay when you know.
Go ahead, Rob.
I said, if you need a place to stay when you get here, let me know.
Okay, sure. Heck yeah, that'll save me money right there.
Yeah.
Hey,
if I fly in, will you pick me up at the airport? And
no.
Hey, I was trying. Okay.
I'll pick you up, Russ. I'll pick you up and take you over to Rob's house.
Okay.
Hey, that works.
All right, thank you. And yeah, thank you out there for watching. And Summers Woodworking just said, everybody give me a thumbs up. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up over there in the while you're still around and hanging around. I forgot to mention that. Thank you for reminding me of that, Brian.
Jeff Robinson is trying to remind you of Death Shop Confessions.
Death Shop. Oh, no, it's not Death Shop Confessions. It's Wood Shop Confessions. Death Shop Confessions. Oh, crap. We don't want to kill nobody. All right. So which one of y'all wants to? No, we already did, I think. Did we do the Wood Shop Confessions for y'all?
One.
Yeah, I think Elliot did the other night when we were on Matt's.
Yeah.
Okay, so Michelle, you have to do it now. So, all right. So, wood shop confession is what's one of the dumbest thing you've done in the shop that afterwards you went like, why the heck did I do that?
One of these happened recently, didn't it?
Yeah, I don't remember.
God damn it.
As we said the other week, they're often overshadowed by, I do them kind of a lot. So
you don't have one, Michelle? Come on, you got to have one.
I'm trying to help by thinking of one, and it's.
Do you remember Red Human? I feel like recently I had like a major screw up that I did. I'm not going to sit here and see, oh, well, I never make mistakes, which I totally do. But the reality is like I'm the most experienced person in the shop. Ooh. So people come to me with questions.
And the other thing is like 90% of what we do, we don't, even though she's the most experienced, we do a lot of things we've never done before. So there's always mistakes, and it's never really this big like thing. It's just like, okay, so this happened. How do we deal with it? And like, that's how we deal with everything. So it's hard really to pick it out, right? Unless it's hilarious.
So you make your
Michelle and throw something out there.
Your mistakes are made into a design challenge, in other words.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the way it always is, right? Like, it's something happens. It's never, oh my gosh, something bad happened. It's just, all right, what's next?
They're not bugs or features.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's boring. I wish I had something, and I feel like I wish I could. I feel like I know I did something recently that was really stupid, but
we'll remember as soon as we're off the stream.
Yeah.
I'll tell you something I did the other day, and I just about busted my butt right here in the shop. Is I laid all those toys out on the floor. I put a piece of MDF that I had, and I laid all those toys out on the floor to take a picture with them. So I took my picture, and it was right here in front of the workbench, which is behind me. And I walked to my workbench to do something, and I was doing something, and I took like a step or two back. Well, guess what? All those toys were there, and I stepped right in top of all those toys with all those wheels.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I just about busted my butt right here in the middle of the shop. The only thing that saved me was I lurched forward and grabbed a hold of the desk to keep from going to the ground. But I was like, and I just set the dang things there. I knew they were there, but yet I turned around and backed up right into them.
So actually, Elliot reminded me of my most recent mess up. So I mentioned earlier that I have like a Power Wheels Barbie Jeep, and my plan is to turn it into like a remote control monster truck. And I got this thing, and they told me it was working, but it doesn't have a battery. And I said, that's fine. I'll buy one, or really I'm going to replace it with a better battery. So we get it into the shop, and I have a Power Wheels. Of course, I want to make sure it works and play around with it. And it's like, okay, this thing's rated for like 8 volts, 12 volts maybe. What 12-volt power supply do I have? Well, I've got these DeWalt handgun screw guns. They're 20 volts. That's the same, right? So I made this like super janky power adapter, which was wires twisted together, put into a breadboard, which is like a prototyping electronics board.
Did you let the smoke out?
There's a video on the Making It Up Instagram where I'm driving down like part of the studio, and I try to turn around and I smell plastic, and I was like, oh, I melted the breadboard with 20 volts when it's rated for like 5.
20 amps, yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of like a no-brainer moment.
Well, you know, I was really excited and wanted to play with this thing, so I know better now. But turns out 20 volts is too many volts for a breadboard.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say so. Well, we're going to bless you so that you won't have any more of those moments anymore.
Exactly. I see in chat, Tommy G, exactly. I izzied the power wheel with the drill.
Yeah, exactly. Very much so. Exactly that.
And please stay out of Lowe's electrical department. Just saying.
Yeah. Elliot and Michelle don't know, and I hate that place that Donald works at. I detest Lowe's. I can't stand Lowe's.
Well, I mean, if I went in there and told them I was a woodworker and was expecting to go into lumber, building supplies, hardware, they stuck me in electrical. What do you know about electrical? Nothing.
I get bit if I stick my finger in the outlet.
Yeah. Use a bobby pin. It works better.
Although I'm learning.
And you'll learn tons too doing that, Donald. That's probably a neat thing.
Every time they come back talking about their house burned down, I learned.
That after 20 subpoenas, right?
All right, guys, we got to get out of here. So again, thank you, Michelle and Elliot. I really appreciate you being on. Fantastic show. We learned a ton of information. Trust me. And thank all of y'all again for being out there in the chat. I appreciate it. And all y'all for being on the panel. We only have one thing left to do for me to close out, and that is just give me sawdust, lots of sawdust all around me and everywhere. I like it flying all around my shop and even in my beard and hair. Good night, everybody, and God bless.
Night all.
Bye.
Remember, you don't have to go home. You can't stay here.
Have fun, guys.
Go away. You can leave. Go away.